Good morning or afternoon, depending on when you're tuning in today. Today we'll be covering Module 1, Reverse Engineering, on our course for Designing Effective Programs. So, what are we going to be learning in this module? Today, we're going to be learning the key terms, but don't worry, there are only a small amount of key terms to really understand. Together, we will create a rough sketch of the program we want to design. And lastly, we are going to produce another rough sketch of the program's workflow. Let's begin with defining behavior. Behavior is an individual's actions. Next, we have theories. Theories are explanations for how the world works. Next, we have a logic model. Logic models are how we operationalize our theories into action. Next, we have evaluations. An evaluation is how we validate the program's outcomes or statements. Lastly, we have the program. The program is how the logic model works in the real world. Remember, the logic model is how we operationalize the theories, but the program is how the logic model actually works in the real world. Now let's focus on the program aspect and start to work our way backwards. Our first step is to take basic lessons from research methods and set up our program design. We do this by asking, what questions do we have? Typically, I like to start by asking, what is the current problem? Remember, the purpose of a design is to solve a specific problem. So from my experience, I always ask this as the most foremost question. After defining the problem, I will then ask, what do we want? Now, this is important because if you are working in a team, you would want buy-in, so your people are more likely to adopt the program we are designing. The last question on my list is typically, what resources and our assets are available to our team or department? For example, you may have built your team as a program manager to help develop a well-rounded skill set. In another example, you may be operating a department with resources that you can tap into. By taking account of the resources available to you, you can be efficient with your resources to implement this future program. Because this can be applied to a wide range of problems, today we'll focus on business. However, I will later take a deep dive into the world of healthcare during our first case study. The current problem we want to address is work performance. Now, what do we want increased? What do we want work performance to look like when we increase it? Well, we want it to look like increased sales. In this example, we only have a company budget to help support this program. Now, good programs do not need a huge budget. It just needs a good fundamental design and proper training on implementing it. So please do not feel discouraged or personally think that this means a huge portion of the budget needs to go into this program for this particular example. Let's say in this example, there's a $1,000 budget to help solve this problem. Now, Now that we have answered our questions and set up the basic study design, we have 3 variables that we want to affect. Working backwards, we went from looking at the program to now examining the evaluation portion. We have to think about what represents our variables, or what can we track to measure whether or not we made a difference in these variables. We can track work performance by tracking increased sales. With every step along the way, we should be asking ourselves, does this make sense? In this case, yes, it does make sense. And it also aligns with how our team envisions what improved work performance looks like. Now, we can track the amount of sales by the amount of interactions because it provides us insight into how many inquiries we are converting into sales. In other words, how many people are you selling to, and out of all of those people, how many are buying? To me, this makes sense because you cannot increase sales without increasing the number of interactions you have with old or new customers, because you would lack the opportunity to sell. In the last variable, we are looking at the company budget. In this case study, which is just a fancy word for application, we want to improve the company budget through a justification of increasing the budget. So we decide that the return on investment, ROI, justifies increasing the funds to this program. Now again, remember, you do not need a huge budget to make an effective program. However, the financial situation does need to get covered. Now, does this make sense? Yes. We are affecting the company budget that is devoted to this program by tracking the ROI. Now, at this stage, we have gone from evaluation to the logic model. At this stage, we need to ask what resources are needed to be successful. In order to truly understand this, you need to take the time to communicate with your team again. This is called a qualitative study. And this is just a fancy way of saying that you're going to talk to your team again. After talking to your team advocates for professional development. So now, you know that your team is more likely to adopt professional development as opposed to other resources, such as additional team members or even better software. Again, after talking to your people through a qualitative study, they're advocating that a lot of their interactions are with people not in the market. In other words, the people they are interacting with are not converting into sales because they are not in the target audience. Remember, as a leader, you're taking their input and centering the focus on their input because their input is directly from the front lines. In this case study, we have determined that a cost-benefit analysis is necessary because we may need to have upper management approve it prior to releasing the funds for this program. Now, if you're a small business owner, you may want to do this because you want to make an informed decision. At this point, we have covered a lot of ground very fast. It is actually quite natural to feel confused or a little lost, which again is normal because you're learning a lot of information in a short time frame. At the end of this module, you may have to rewatch it the next day That way you have it click into place. If you need to take a break, I would recommend pausing at this moment. During the break, I would recommend seeing how everything is tying together here. For example, we want to improve work performance, so we are tracking the amount of sales, because the amount of sales can be directly related to work performance in this case study. After determining we want to track sales, we determined that professional development would be needed by the team to improve conversion of sales. Now you may be thinking, the team also decided that our message was not exclusively reaching the target audience. It is important to note that we can affect both. We can affect the success rate of target audience sales while also providing better exclusivity to the target audience. Now I'll pause for about 10 seconds to allow you to click pause and take a break. Now, we have gone from the logic model to the theory portion of the program design. In this portion, we get to have fun and creatively think about the problem and how it aligns with the team's input. So we'll walk through this question together very carefully, because creativity is a powerful tool, and this tool can either derail the framework or make the framework truly innovative, effective, and self-sustaining. So in this case study, we're choosing psychology. This can be organizational design, strength coaching, sales-specific coaching, and so on. It's important to recognize that we chose psychology because we're trying to increase sales. Secondly, we specifically chose psychology because it deals with human performance. Sometimes professional development does not involve psychology, but because we're trying to positively impact human-to-human sales, we are choosing psychology. And remember, this is just a rough sketch, and in Module 2, we're going to develop the framework. This is purely to understand the desires of the team or department, because at the end of the day, we're going to have to rely on them adopting this program. Now, we are choosing the domain of communication. This can be persuasive communication, search engine optimization techniques, content writing strategy, and so on. We could have easily chosen script writing for a sales script. This would effectively help establish us through workflow processes. However, we are choosing the generalized domain of communication. Again, we are choosing communication because we want to increase sales by increasing the number of interactions with the correct target audience. We will use communication sciences to help exclusively reach the correct customers that are in the market or will be in the market either seasonally or through another reason. We are choosing the domain of economics. Now, you do not need a degree in mathematics or economics specifically, because there are a lot of resources to help you perform a cost-benefit analysis. Secondly, there may be people in your department or team that can perform this. Lastly, if your budget allows for it, you could even have an economic forecast, the results to your upper management, And your upper management is going to use this to help justify the program you're designing, because they're going to see that ROI, return on investment, through that forecast. Now, if you are a small business owner, you may not need to procure an economic forecast. However, just simply think of this as added confidence for producing this program and creating this restricted fund within the overall budget. The idea of choosing economics or applied mathematics is just to justify the program in this unique case study. On the last journey of reverse engineering our program, we're going to look at the behaviors. The question we want to ask in this section is, what is the friction? In other words, what is stopping our team from increasing their sales to effectively improve their work performance? In this case study, we're deciding that conversions, is the point of friction. This relates to behaviors because individuals are choosing not to go forward with the sale, resulting in the interaction not converting into a sale, i.e. the point of friction. Now, remember again, every case study is different, and you have the freedom and creativity to make it your own. We have determined in this case study, potential customers are not self-qualifying themselves because we are not effectively communicating who this product or service is for. This means we are not exclusively reaching the target market because people outside of our market are contacting us. In this particular situation, this is a bad thing. It is bad because we are not allowing our resources and team to engage and interact with potential customers not in the market to make that purchase. This is going to decrease sales and waste company resources because we're not efficiently reaching our specific target audience. To fix this, we're using theories from communication sciences to allow potential customers to self-qualify themselves as either in our target market, potentially entering our target market, or not in our target market. So, we have determined that the policy dictating the current budget is limiting our potential for a positive ROI, return on investment. Now you may be thinking, how does policy influence individual behaviors? Policies dictate how we experience life through the constraints of policies. In this unique case study, this policy limits how much capital or money we can invest into this venture. Secondly, in this case study, we want to make sure that this program can be self-sustaining. So let's say that we want to increase the company budget by taking some profit as restricted funding for this program. Because we are doing a business venture through this program, we are going to want to make sure that it is self-sustaining. This is because at the end of the day, we always want to leave the department or team in a net positive situation. This is the end of our journey. Let's review how everything works together and drill in everything we have gone over. Now, we decided that our variable was work performance. We also decided that we wanted to increase work performance. Because we are targeting work performance, we would want to track how well we are doing by the amount of sales. Because we are trying to improve sales, we decided that there should be professional development. We decided that the professional development should come from psychology because it deals with human-to-human sales. Lastly, we recognized the behavior we wanted to modify in our target audience is our ability to convert them into sales. In the second row, we identified that we want to increase sales because that is what our vision of the solution looks like. We chose number of interactions because it represents opportunity to make those sales occur. We chose customer criteria as a needed resource because we need to effectively identify opportunities that align with the highest potential for making those sales. We chose the science of communication because we're not effectively reaching our desired customer criteria. This means we are talking to people that are not in our market. We chose to target the customer behavior of self-qualification. We want to be efficient with our resources by placing the burden on the customer to self-qualify their readiness to be sold to. In this unique case study, we chose an organizational policy. We chose company budget because it is a resource available to us. We decided that the return on investment, ROI, was an effective measure on tracking the progress of our company's budget through the program's implementation. We decided that a cost-benefit analysis would be a necessary resource to understand the ROI, return on investment. We decided that we should lean towards economics to make a projected forecast for the cost-benefit analysis. We decided that this policy was shaping our team's behavior because it limited our potential for upskilling and growth. So, what did we learn in this module? We learned the key terms such as program, evaluation, logic model, theory, and behavior. We created a rough sketch of how this program could look like with input from the team. We created a rough draft about the mechanisms that we will need to engineer into this program. So how will this continue into Module 2? Well, we're going to use this data to build a framework for our unique program. If we get stuck in designing the blueprints, we can use these ideas to help us get unstuck. Lastly, if we find ourselves sticking to a particular idea, we are going to find out more about our personal bias towards solutions or even decisions as both a manager and a leader. Thank you for taking the time to take this course, and I will see you in Module 2 of Designing Effective Programs.